But do you have any idea where your ambition really comes from? What was driving you?
I really don't know. I've been passionate about certain things forever, and I fell in love with computers in 4th grade. I got very lucky. My elementary school had a teletype that got connected to a mainframe computer that some business in downtown Houston donated a little bit of computer time to. This is, you can picture these teletypes. They had the punch tape, and they had a 300 baud modem. You would dial up the phone and put it in the cradle. And so we had some time sharing on that mainframe computer, and none of the teachers knew how to use it. So me and 2 other kids stayed after school and sort of figured out how to do it, and figured out and kind of taught ourselves programming from books. I think one thing that is, I got very lucky early in my childhood. Look, we all get gifts. We get certain things in our life that are that we're very lucky about. And one of the most powerful one is who your early role models are. They could be your parents.
It was your grandfather.
It was, in a big sense. My mom and dad, but my grandfather too. And my mom had me when she was 17 years old, and she was still in high school in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And this is in 1964. I can assure you that being a pregnant teenager in high school was not cool in Albuquerque, New Mexico at that time. And so it was difficult for her. My grandfather went to bat for her when they tried to kick her out of school, and they're incredible. So the gift I had is I had this incredible family.
Could you describe a little bit the role of your grandfather? Because
Sure.
John has mentioned it. I think it was really important for you.
It was super important for me, and I spent an unusual amount of time with my grandparents, and especially with my grandfather on the ranch. So he had a ranch in South Texas, and I would spend my summers there from age 4 to 16. And when I was 4, they were taking me for the summer to kind of give my parents a break, sort of because they were so young, and it was useful. I was a handful, I'm sure, and anyway, he created the illusion for me when I was 4 years old that I was helping him on the ranch, which of course could not have been true, but I believed it. And then by the time I was 16, of course, I was actually helping on the ranch. I can fix prolapsed cattle. We did all of our own veterinary work. Some of the cattle even survived. And we fixed windmills and laid water pipelines and built fences and barns and fixed the bulldozer that you guys talked about. And so one of the things that's so interesting about that lifestyle and about my grandfather is he did everything himself. He didn't call a vet if one of the animals was sick. He figured out what to do himself. And
so what does it mean? No delegation?
Being resourceful, I think, is that you can't, if there's a problem, there's a solution. And of course, as you mature and get into the business world and anything you do on a team, you very quickly realize that it's not about just your own resourcefulness, it's about team resourcefulness and how does that work. And but that attitude of my grandfather's was but he was full of wisdom. John mentioned the story about the words my grandfather gave to me at one point of, it's harder to be kind than clever. That story, the slightly longer version of that story, because this was really powerful wisdom, is that I made my grandmother burst into tears. And the way I did it was we were driving on a long road trip, and she was a chain smoker. And I was probably, 10 years old, so this was around 1974. And it was in a period of time where there were heavy radio advertisements, sort of anti-smoking radio advertisements, trying to convince people to stop smoking. And one of the advertisements had this figure in it. It said something like, every puff of a cigarette takes so many minutes off of your life. I think it was 2 minutes, but I can't remember. Every puff of a cigarette. So I sat there in the back seat on this long car ride and calculated how many years she had taken off of her life. And in my 10-year-old mind, I had been extremely clever to do this. And so when I was finished with my arithmetic, I proudly announced to her how many years she had taken off of her life. And I got a reaction I did not expect with her bursting into tears. And so my grandfather stopped the car and he took me out of the car. And I had no idea what was about to happen because he had never said a cross word to me. And I thought he might actually be angry with me, but he wasn't. He took me out because we had some privacy from her. And he said these incredible words. He said, you're gonna figure out one day that it's harder to be kind than clever.
Clever, wonderful.